All right. So live once again for another show. This time we've got on the one and only Jagger Jones. Drove last year for the number 6 Ford for Sunrise Ford Racing in the ARCA Menards series. So in the ARCA Menards series West, to be exact, back when it was called the K&N series. And it's been a interesting ride for you in 2020, that's for sure. But of course, it's been crazy thing for everybody for 2020. But how you doing?
Pretty good, and thanks for having me on the show.
Of course, yeah. And, it's crazy times for you. Of course, I mean we'll get into it. You had a drive in 2019, and then the 2020 NASCAR season steps up, and now of course I don't believe you have a drive. At least that's what they're saying. Hopefully that changes in a couple of weeks when we go back racing.
Yeah, so last season, just kind of give a little recap. I went in number 6 for Sunrise Ford, and all of the K&N West is now it's the ARCA West series, but then I was still the K&N West, and we went out second in the point standing, won Rookie of the Year. We won a race, basically achieved all goals for me personally as a team, and for me as a driver, and for the team. I think we were pretty happy with our season. It was pretty good for us. Here me and a lot of people, we were kind of planning long term and thought the best just really just go and strive for something bigger to kind of get out of the West Coast, putting any on the West, just because we obviously racetracks, and people and do so for all the West Coast racing. It's really, for me in my career, the best thing is to do is try to go get an East team or a main ARCA team for this 2020 season. We were working on that, and then it kind of all came to a once. I mean, no one could have expected what's happened here the last months, and with the whole shutdown of racing. I mean, I think it was expected, and so a lot of that's kind of halted it, but we're still to secure the funding and secure what we need to put some races together this year when we go back racing, and just for the future, whenever that happens. It's kind of a unknown time now. That's to get an ARCA this. I'm still 17, so I can't do a lot of the bigger tracks. So I think that's where was my career, is try to go to ARCA East races or do a main ARCA races.
Yeah, exactly. That's of course a lot of drivers' goals when they step into basically what's now the ARCA series. All of those ARCA series from the East and West, just like you said, because of course once you're 18, you're able to go to mile-and-a-half racetracks in 2 miles. So it should be fun, and of course, like I said, we'll get into it more. So what I want to start off with what was it like growing up in a racing family? I know you have some background to that with your dad, and just of course, how did that basically benefit you to do what you're doing now?
Yeah, sure. I mean, growing up from those literally to today, I've always been around the racetrack and around the racing lifestyle. I mean, I grew up hearing stories about my grandpa racing and all of his accomplishments, his story of him raced back in the day, all that he's accomplished. And then I also just grew up at my dad race IndyCar, NASCAR, stadium super trucks, off road. So really like set for me. Like there was no other like way I wouldn't fall into racing. I mean, when you're around that and you look up to your dad and your grandpa and that doing, and you kind of look at them as heroes. You're like, I want to be doing that one. It's when, not if, when you're a young kid like that. And I mean, my first was badly a toy NASCAR, some toy sort of toy car. So I just really, it's cool to. I wasn't for racing. I mean, my dad bought me a go kart when I was younger, and we would just go out around. Like when I was about 9 years old, and I was like begging my dad to go out, take me to go and go do racing, and Once he saw I went about racing, and my mom saw that too. They were both on board for me, whatever I wanted to do. If I wanted to race, I didn't make a career out of that. They were full support, um, whatever my passion was. They were going to fully support me, whether it was racing or not. But like I said, just grew up around racing. It was uh, what I wanted to do as a kid. How could you seeing race cars your whole life, and obviously race, especially when you're younger, and um, that's motorsports was what I loved watching on TV. 5 years old. I remember sitting down watching full NASCAR race when I was 4 or 5 years. Um, it was definitely, and then I was able to turn what my dad and my grandpa showed me in racing on the track to my own love for racing and my own passion to go out there and win races and be the best driver.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what helps, of course, light a fire. You see all that. And of course, the big thing was you got your start at, of course, 9 years old when, of course, you got a little bit more competitive with the kartings, and you got to race in also Europe with karting too. How was that like?
Yeah, that was super cool. I mean, I definitely grew up more on the open wheel side of things. I mean, I raced go karts, all road course stuff against guys like Colton Herta and a bunch of guys that are up and coming in the IndyCar and
Mhm.
Formula One ranks. And so I was definitely more geared towards that at a young age. I mean, I really like the open wheel style cars and all that. And I went over, and so I won the national championship here in the U.S. for go karting, which is called like the SCUSA Pro Tour at the time. I believe I was 12, or that was 2014, and then that earned me a trip to go over and represent the USA for a couple races in Europe for the next. So I did that for the next couple. I did that series, the Trophy Academy, for 2 years, and had some good finishes. And I also stayed over there and did some more. It was super cool just to race against so many competitive guys over there. I mean, karting over there for them is like base here in the U.S. It's like a pretty like established sport over there. I mean, kids are out there practicing every day. You have drivers from all over the world coming and traveling there to race. So it was super cool to get that experience and go over there and kind of the open wheel and like the beginning of where a lot of the Formula One guys and IndyCar guys come from. And I was honestly pretty set on that path, and then kind of changed when I was starting to get some car racing. And my dad put me in a legend car for a couple races, and I was pretty hooked on oval racing. And um, I thought I had the best chance there, and I could stay closer to home. And I really liked the NASCAR stuff once I got into late models and started moving up the ranks, and um, just really started focusing on the NASCAR side of things, which a year before I started racing late models, if you would have told me that I was racing ovals, I would have been in shock. But I really enjoyed the NASCAR stuff once I started doing that.
That's pretty cool. And of course, yeah, I want to ask, like, what was your I or what was the most iconic track that you got to race at in karting? And of course, before you got to Legends, because I know some Legend tracks like racing at Charlotte, that oval track, and Thompson and South Boston, and all those are amazing. But just on that Europe to karting side, what was the most iconic track that you got to like race at for karting?
Definitely was Le Mans. Le Mans. I went there twice, 2 years in a row, and I believe I one year I finished like a top of 10. We had a pretty good result. The second year I went there, and it was cool because the karting track's right. Um, I, it's right in the middle of the big track that they run for the 24-hour series, and just it was cool to go over there and check out like the museum and drive our street car down the highway where the normal race runs. Um, and also that was super cool to do that and go race there. We also go out to Lanado, which is a really popular go kart track. South Garda is what they call it. It's like basically where all the karting teams are based out of like an hour radius, and that's basically their home track. So that was pretty cool to go race there. And um, we definitely I went everywhere from France to Italy to Spain, Portugal, England, Sweden. So we definitely made our miles those couple years back and forth from all the way from Arizona to Europe. Um, but it was super cool, and I'm super happy I got to that privilege and have that experience.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, then now moving on, you talk about your Legends career, and I mean, it's something like talk about how that car is because I know iRacing kind of tries to
Yeah,
make it similar as well, but just it's kind of a beast on wheels. It's kind of like a go kart, just on steroids,
yeah.
basically. So yeah,
I only did a few legend races. Like I didn't go and do the Charlotte shootout and all of that like those guys because I was racing go karts up until I was 14 years old. So when I got into legend, I was 14, so I was a bit older than some of those guys starting legend. I only did a handful. I probably only did 5 or 6 oval legend races. They were all at the bull ring at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And then I've probably done throughout the years. I've kind of went back and ran some road course races with the legend car, which is honestly one of the most fun like car and track combos. Uh, the road course they have outside of turn one at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Running that with the legend is super fun. So I didn't go and do like the Charlotte Shootout and a bunch of those huge legend races like a lot of kids did because I was a bit older and I just went right into late models after a couple legends races because I think I was ready for it. I was a bit older and pretty mature for my age, and I thought it was better to go get some more, have some more time in a bigger like a full stock car rather than focusing on legends.
yeah. So you just man, you answered my next question. I mean, you felt like it was the right time for you to move on, and of course, yeah, just like you said, you were a little older. Because yeah, that was my next question: was when did you feel like it was that right time? And so that's good to know, of course. And you also had some help along the way in your late model career. I believe you got signed by Junior Motorsports too at one time.
Yeah, so I the first year I ran late models was all out West Coast, running for High Point Racing, which is um, I was actually teammates in with Trevor Huddleston, who ended up being my teammate in K&N, which is cool. And his dad runs a really good program there in the models. And out at Hill Speedway, we ran a bunch of races there in County and Madera and Vegas. Put a really good schedule together, and I got good experience and won some races that year. And the next year, I went more West Coast late model racing, and I also like that I went and did a couple. I did 3 races for Junior Motorsports. One the first was at Myrtle Beach, which we got out and won the first time out, and then we had some 2 other good finishes at Hickory. Yeah, their other 2 races were both at Hickory. I think we finished 5th and 3rd in one of those. So it was super cool to have that experience and um, having Josh Berry there coaching me and being able to drive the 88 for Dale Jr. is pretty iconic in itself.
Yeah, indeed it is, and it it helps you also get that. If I'm not mistaken, you got won a championship in the late models too, which of course probably propelled you to help you get a even a just good experience. Basically, you talk about that experience too, and yeah, how was that feeling when you came home with the late model tier? Yeah, that the late
Yeah,
yeah
it was
that
super cool
yeah.
to win Kern County. We won the late model championship there, and I think 2018 we won the championship. Because it kind of was my first oval championship I won. It was cool. We had good competition there, and just to be able to put a whole season together at that track was cool, especially because um, I mean, going back there and running a K&N car there, it was cool to have that experience and know that I'm a champion at that racetrack. So it gave a little like cons for the future for that K&N race, and it was definitely a good feeling. I think I won 5 or 6 of the races there, and to win the championship was pretty awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing is how are you able to adjust from, of course, Yeah, you talk about racing for junior motorsports and, of course, racing in the West Coast a lot with the late models. How are you able to adjust from team to team?
Um, I think a lot of it was going. I ran way more races, or I ran at least 30 races over in the West Coast before I went over and did the races for juniors motorsports. So it was a learning curve. I mean, the cars are pretty similar over there as out in the West Coast, but they run a different tire, a slick tire for the late model stocks out in North Carolina and in that area with the whole cars tour. So um, a lot of it was Josh Berry. He was a really good coach for me over there at Junior Motorsports. He did a really good job of helping me adjust to a little bit of a different car, and he knows those tracks super well from Hickory and Myrtle Beach. He's ran plenty of races there, so he was a good voice in my ear, telling me what I need to do, what do I need to feel for the car to be fast and be good for the race. And he was a huge help, and I think just having experience driving a lot of different cars and a lot of different styles of tracks, I can adjust pretty easily to different cars and different tracks when I first go run a new series. Like I think a lot of that experience of me driving off-road cars to go racing go-karts, racing legends, late models, a bunch of different things, and just growing up driving whatever's in front of me has helped me in my racing kind of adjust to new styles of tracks and new cars. I mean, I'm not just fixated on one car, and I feel like I got more of an overall driving ability rather than just dominating late models or dominating in legend cars. I feel like um, just being a pretty balanced overall good driver has helped me like go out there and win that first race there and do well in a bunch of different cars and a bunch of different series.
Yeah, exactly. And one more thing before, of course, we advance on the topic of your career. Just talk us through, of course, that first race win, winning at Myrtle Beach with Junior Motorsports, considering that's where you got to start, as well as a lot of other drivers in the NASCAR ranks at Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, I mean, I think we went and practiced the day before and at Hickory to just get me used to the car, get me kind of fitted in, and get me pretty like comfortable in the seat. And then we headed down to Myrtle Beach. We practiced Friday night. We were super fast, and like right away we were on pace to win uh, compared to the other cars there. And Saturday I think we got third, and it was actually excuse me, it was actually a double header of a race that night. It was twin races that night.
Mm-hmm.
The first race I was running third, saving my tires, and someone from behind like threw a complete crazy dive bomb, and I ended up spinning, getting some damage. I think I had a flat tire, so I actually DNF'd the first race at Myrtle Beach that weekend. And so we got the car fixed up, put a new tire on it. We had to like replace the whole front end, the whole body of the front end, and put the car. I mean, it did look pretty. We had have mixed match pieces. I think we had a white hood on a black car with some random hood we found from one of the guys next to the other one was destroyed, and we went out, started last in the second feature, and we just literally just drove through the field like they were standing still. I mean, we had the cars on rails that weekend, and to be able to, I think we started 27th, and by lap 10 we were almost in the top 5, and just picked the leaders off one by one the rest of the race, and it was super cool to win. I mean, just the experience of just even going and getting to drive there for Dale Jr. is one thing, and then going out and winning your first race was unbelievable. It was super cool, and I think that really helped catapult my career. And I mean, it's definitely an accomplishment that'll be on my resume forever. And it was super cool to have that experience.
Most definitely, indeed. And now, of course, we advance up and talk about well your past season that you had in 2000, 2019 season, basically. And this was an exciting one for you, considering rookie season. You get to ARCA West, or what was known as the K&N West series, and it had a ton of stars. It was a star-studded lineup, basically. You had the likes of, well, Garrett Kraus, Haley Deegan, you, your teammate, just so many other drivers that were in that field that were so great week in and week out. And of course, just also having a couple of races where you get to race against the East drivers too. So just, I guess throughout that first race, I know that did you race at New Smyrna or was that
No,
a
I did
race
not.
afterwards? Yeah.
No, we only did the West races. We didn't do any other races. So our first race going in, I'd only went and done 2 test days in the car. Um, our first race out was Vegas, the dirt race. It was a big unknown for everyone.
Yeah.
I remember literally I was struggling just getting the feel of the car down, just the simple things like on and swap brake fans to run, just sitting comfortable in the car, just my shifting, like all that was a whole new deal to me. I'd only practiced a few hours in the car at the most, and it definitely wasn't on dirt. And I've never ran in dirt racing before. My mom and dad and my grandparents have kept me away from that stuff just because my uncle getting hurt and midget and sprint cars are dangerous. So I've kind of been guided to stay away from that kind of. So it was a new deal learning the whole dirt oval racing, along with being in a stock car, which is it's kind of a one-off event. And I remember Friday practice we were like 3/10 quicker than we had a great car, and um, that race we went and dominated the whole second half, and then last lap ended up getting held up by some lap cars and ended up finishing second. But looking back at it now, a great weekend for us. I would have liked to win that race. I won probably first the most out of any race I've been in, just because first K&N race, and it would have been a huge deal if I would have pulled that one off. And just being close to winning that, and just have such a dumb mistake really cost me the win, with a lap car running to be in the last lap and some other lap cars holding me up. And but it was definitely a cool start to the season. And as much as I'd like to win that, and as much as I was pretty bummed in the moment, pretty frustrated with how the things went. Um, I think it started off with a pretty good season.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. Yeah, you get second place, and you talked about it. That lap car on the final corner of the lap getting held up by lap traffic and all that other stuff, considering, like you said, you had only had so many hours of practice, and a couple of other drivers had been there. They raced it last year because it was the first year in the schedule, and yeah, just absolutely crazy things. I know some drivers said how the car handled there and how it felt was basically like it was almost racing on cement, where you're just sliding around constantly because the dirt got so
Yeah,
slick because the rubber was being laid down.
yeah, yeah. They had the track like pretty prime throughout practice and our heat races that day, and um, they had it pretty. I don't know the whole dirt racing terms for what you do to the track, but had it like it wasn't rubbered up at all. Like it was pretty soft. And you could slide the car around, you could run high, you could run down low, and then a little behind schedule, and they had the World of Outlaw race run on it, and the track was basically turned to pavement, and they didn't have time because they were really behind schedule to fix the track back, so they just sent us for a race almost, like just around the ball, try to keep the car as straight as possible so you could get off the corner pretty well. But whether the track was slick like it was earlier in the day or it was rubbered up at night, we were definitely, I think, we had the spit it. Um, yeah, I mean it was a fun race, but it's definitely a different driving a stock car on pavement. I mean, I think we were 10 seconds off on a half-mile track of the World of Outlaw cars, so um, it's definitely a different deal. And it was kind of a one-off deal where not a lot of people had much experience. If anyone had, was just running the year before, which was pretty chaotic. So it was kind of a new deal for everyone. And I think like going back to what I was talking about earlier, just my ability of driving a bunch of different cars and a bunch of different things, able to adapt, I think, pretty well compared to a lot of others that just been racing on ovals, on ovals their whole life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that the 1-2 basically being Haley Deegan and you, and you both of you all have different had different yeah ways of driving the race cars, and yeah, you had experience with kart and all the other stuff that you ran, and she had experience with off road racing, which helped her out in that too. So yeah, moving on, you go of course to the next race, and a couple of races later, have a couple of bad finishes, but all in all, you had top tens all the way through until I believe closer to Iowa, and of course before you got your first race win. So that was pretty big. Of course, you getting top tens throughout the weekends, which of course in that point was very important.
Yeah, we definitely had a good season. The next couple races, we finished fourth at Irwindale, and I think we finished third on it. Colorado, we had a chance to win, and it kind of came down to a lap restart where I was starting on the front row, and so we had a chance to win that race. We were in contention the whole season, and Sonoma we were pretty fast. We had some issues. We qualified fifth, but I had to start 30 something because we had a radiator leak and a few mistakes kind of held us from winning races, and struggled a little bit as I think as a team on some of the bigger tracks like Iowa and Gateway. I think we were just out in Gateway and just kind of maximize the speed we had. Slow on some of those bigger tracks, just from a smaller team with the engine from manufacturers, and not having like a truck team, and not having like some of the other teams like Gilliland and those bigger teams. I think they just got a lot of more success than we did on the bigger tracks, and it definitely showed there. And but then I think it was October, we were able to go out and win in Roseville, and that was a great feeling just because how much we worked the season to improve as a team and get better, and we pretty much dominate the race. It definitely felt good to get my first K&N win.
Yeah, exactly. Getting your first K and win there at Roseville. It, and I remember watching it live too on Fans Choice TV. And I think the PA announcer was saying something like it was almost like a home race for you too, because I think I don't know, it was just yeah, it was a special feeling for you to get your first win there, and crowd was getting
Yeah,
really into it.
yeah, they were. Well, I think it was opposite of a home race. I mean, I'd never been there before at that racetrack until that weekend. I mean, I didn't. I don't think I one person there with me or anything. I think the only people I knew there was just my team. My mom or my dad both weren't there because I think my dad was racing that weekend, and my mom was probably out driving my brother around somewhere to his races. And um, I definitely got a lot of booze after I won because a little incident that happened early in the race with Haley. Um, the fans weren't too happy what happened, but I mean, usually if you're getting booed, you know you're doing something right. So it was pretty cool to win that race and um, just get my first win, and especially like learning on a track that and showing up to a brand new track. I'd never seen the place other than YouTube videos, and acting and learning and getting our car better and better, and just how close we came to some wins like earlier in the year at Colorado and Vegas to finally like actually win. Even Meridian a couple weeks before we were leading on coming to the white flag and we got taken out. So like going through all those problems and overcoming that to race felt really really good.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned some key races in your career, and I want to go back to them. Of course, yeah, talking about Colorado for starters, or actually, yeah, no, before we get to that. So, yeah, halfway through the season, you're looking good on points, but you hadn't won a race yet. What was the mentality like with the team?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really focus on points too much. I mean, I really just wanted to go out there and win races and have the best finish I could. I mean, rookie of the year was something on our goal list for sure. And I knew if we just went out there and had some good races, we would uh, go out win this and have good finishes um, and show our speed that we had on some of the shorter tracks. And all there, we would win rookie of the year, no problem. So it and I didn't really look consider decision making out on track. I just went for whatever out and try to win races. And I mean, we ended up finishing second in the points, so it was definitely a good season for us for a rookie year.
Yeah, of course. And yeah, talking about the Colorado race and that final restart. I mean, your top three, of course, are stacked once again. It's you, Haley Deegan, and then this person named Derek Kraus. And so, I mean, just take us through what basically happened on the restart.
Yeah, we were gonna end up finishing second that night if the caution didn't come out. I think 3 or 4 laps to go, and so I was running second, was leading, so I was starting on the outside, and the leader was choosing the outside almost every, but she decided to pick the bottom because I'd run her up the track, and it gets a short track, so you kind of gotta be a little a little offensive sometimes, and instead of defense and plan ahead on some of those restarts. It's physical on a out track like that, and um, she was worried about me. I think she was trying to run me up. She pushed to like Kane and then just opened the door up for Kraus. She completely let Kraus by and ended up pushing me out of the group. And it was kind of an unfortunate. I guess they went and got into each last lap. I was behind it, and me and Trevor trying to avoid the chaos ended up each other out teammates. So just a racing, not run into the car front of us. It was a pretty deal to on the last lap, just having a solid night competing. But sometimes that's just how short track it goes.
Yeah, of course. And the big thing was then, of course, you go on, and this is before you get your first win. You have one opportunity, you're in the race lead. Another late caution kind of happens. Restart's good. You pass Derek Kraus for the race lead, and then he decides, of course, to try and push you up the racetrack because he felt like he was probably wrong. So it just takes through that race, too.
Yeah, I mean that was an unfortunate deal. We were right there with 1 and 2 all race, and we got around him on a late caution. And I mean, I definitely, in my opinion, it was a pretty fair racing pass. I used my door a little bit. I didn't push him out of the group, run him into the wall. I didn't spin him, and that was going into one. Or I was able to get around him, and then just going into 3, just flat out dumped us. I was trying to, or just trying to move out of the way, but angle he hit me. I had nothing. It was just going into 3. So he got into me. Next thing I know, I was facing backward.
Yeah, exactly.
Whole field of cars caught at me, so stuck. So I definitely wasn't too happy after, especially because race control didn't bother to do anything. And at least they were throughout the year. They, if you're not going to do anything about someone completely wrecking early in the season with the whole Colorado deal, it was called to not do it there. They even said that they're going to let us handle it ourselves. So at least they were consistent with that, but it kind of sucked to lose with another one just a few laps to go. And I think it just motivated us more, and we were able to go the next one, the next race out. And
Yeah, exactly. It made that season extremely fun for the fans, and of course, drivers I know, just like you said, it it made it more motivating for every driver to try and just hold the lead, and if they had to use the bumper, which that's what short
Yeah,
track
it
racing.
definitely. Yeah, definitely. A, a couple races turned pretty chaotic, like Colorado, Meridian, Sonoma crazy. I don't think had one fender that wasn't completely destroyed after the race, and
Mhm.
just that's just somehow some of those races go like that. You just start pushing her around. You just kind of fight back a little bit. There's not much else to do, and I mean, if that's just some of the races. I mean, some races are clean, lots of green flags, and other races it just feels like it's caution after caution. But we'll get aggressive. I'm sure you know with the iRace what goes too. It's just the way it is sometimes, and like that's just the nature of racing on such a short track. Because when it gets hard to pass, I mean, sometimes you bumper if you want to go out and win races.
Yeah, of course. And yeah, second place basically the whole season with the points standing to you, Derek Kraus. Of course, Derek Kraus leading for most of it, but you get to the final race of the season, and of course, you're from Arizona, so this was a big race for you. It was at Phoenix, or yeah, just Phoenix Raceway. I'm not going to call it ISM, but talk us through because that was also another crazy race, considering how aggressive everybody was, especially on the restarts, because it was a bigger track. It's still a short track, but it was a bigger track, and it had that dog leg right at the start.
Yeah, for us, I mean, I would consider to our season, it was definitely one of the biggest tracks we ran. So we definitely it was cool to go race there. I was a kid. I mean, I remember going there and thinking, one day I want to be racing here, just because how many times I went and watched races there. My idols like Jim and just going out and hanging out at the track there a lot. It was cool to be able to experiencing there. I have a lot of friends and family out there. Just I've lived in Phoenix all my life, so that we kind of struggled again on like some of the bigger tracks like there in
Mm-hmm.
Phoenix that week. Um, yeah, it turned aggressive there at the end on those final few restarts with the being leading the dog restart. Just about everyone was within 2 lengths from the inside wall on the dog, about almost 100 feet of actual racetrack. So it was pretty chaotic. I remember being four wide a couple times, and I believe we ended up finishing sixth there and closed out second championship, which was cool. And I definitely like to go race there again and try to run better. And I'd love to win there one day, whether ARCA or ARCA truck or Cup or whatever. And it's definitely and it was definitely one of my favorite tracks we went to all year.
Yeah, it's always a fun track to watch, especially now with the revampment of Phoenix always loving to t- turn their track into something else, basically, which is really fun and interesting. And of course, yeah, you talked about it. You win Rookie of the Year. You don't win the championship, but you came close to it. But winning Rookie of the Year, I mean, how exciting and awesome was that, considering, just like you said, that was one of your goals to win a race to get Rookie of the Year, and you were able to accomplish that. What was it feeling like, team, and all that?
Yeah, it was definitely a good deal. I mean, we locked it up 2 races to go still on the season, so it was cool to win that. My main goal going into the season was to go win races, and we were able to win a race, came close a few times. So I think the best feeling we had throughout the year was Roseville for sure. Um, but yeah, definitely, like you said, it was cool to win and kind of check that one off the bucket list.
Awesome. And yeah, crazy season for you indeed in K&N. Now, of course, just stepping aside from, of course, racing for a second, yeah, you're still in school too. So how have you been, or how were you able to, throughout your racing career, be able to stay up on your schoolwork and be able to go travel and race?
Yeah, I mean, it's been tough to go to normal high school and normal school my whole life, and just that with racing. But it's definitely something that happy I did look back on it, and I'm out this year. I'm a senior in high school, so it's a little time right now because we're all online now since the the whole quarantine started. Managing racing in school, it's hard because months I literally every Thursday and Friday, and it's cool to my school to get behind me and be able to help me to do my work and still have a pretty normal week at school as a high school 17-year-old, and then wait till the weekend. I'm happy I did that, and it definitely didn't get in the way of any of my racing. If anything, it had a normal, which I think will only help me. And it was been, um, I mean, looking back on it, like I said, I'm happy I did it, and probably I'll end up college and try to get a college degree while racing. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. And yeah, you mentioned it, the quarantine because of COVID-19. How have you been managing to really just stay fit and pass the time, basically, especially since, well, you're still a racing driver, and we don't know. Well, we kind of have a little bit of an idea of when things will go back to normal for at least racing, where you'll be able to go back out and get onto the track, whether it's without fans or anything like that. So, just how have you been managing to spend your time and stay fit and do all that?
Yeah, I've been doing I been doing some of the Grand National Tour races on Wednesday. I think he's coming up this week on Wednesday night that NBC's and Parker Kligerman and that Truex management group is putting on. We went out and finished second one of the races, and we were in contention to win this past week, last Wednesday, and that's been fun doing races up there on iRacing and just kind of spending some time doing that and kind of stay in the feel of driving a car as much as possible. And also been spending a lot of time now bike. It's definitely a huge hobby of mine. I spend a lot of time that all over area and just kind of wherever, and something that enjoy and keeps me fit very good shape. So that's super fun. And then also doing a lot of outing in our UC and kind of a little bit. It's a good way to stay social distance. So we've tried to the most have enjoy our time the most during this deal, and I like to try doing something. I'm not the person to just kind of sit around all day watching TV. Kind of do something every day at least, and it's been fun. Go on some adventures in the outdoors and have some fun races on iRacing with some professional drivers. I remember a couple weeks ago I was doing the Monza Mess, and it was just cool to be in a session with a bunch of IndyCar, NASCAR drivers, just a group of people that you wouldn't expect to be in one session of anything ever in your life. It's been fun doing that, but I think we're all ready to get back to normal, get back racing and get back to a normal life.
Yeah, exactly. I know I'm ready to see some racing action again for sure, whether it be on my
Some real racing too.
Yeah, exactly. Whether it just be on my TV, because I know no matter what, I think everybody's going to be too cautious to let anybody spectate those races at least live
Yeah,
at the tracks. So that, I mean, oh well,
yeah,
I know the drivers
yeah.
just
We're
want to get back.
definitely not we're definitely not to qualified enough to make those calls. So
Yeah.
kind of just got to go with what's happening and I try to pretend like I'm a health crisis doctor on Twitter, all of that, but like some people, but I'm just gotta trust what they're doing, and I mean it's just a matter of time when things are gonna go back to normal. Might as well play it a little cautious, you know,
Yeah, of course.
just wait a little bit longer and just be safer in the long run.
Yeah, of course, all about safety. So that when we do return, it'll be absolutely
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. I think it's better to have one return rather than be like, oh, it was too early and have to try to redo the whole kill and try not to pull the trigger too soon. But whenever that time is, when we'll be all ready to go.
Most definitely. So, of course, the big thing is before I'll let you go, it's getting closer to the end of this interview here. You got any sponsors or shout outs you'd like to give?
I think I'll just talk a little bit about like we're working hard to try to get here some fun for some sponsors and work with for the upcoming or the for the upcoming races whenever we get going, and we've been trying to get some people on board to help push us and get us some races for me car this year. So I think that's the goal going year is to just try to find some people that will put a good schedule for this and next, run some races and try to go out and win in good equipment. So that's really our goal. We're always for people. I got a team helping me try to do this. Confident I'll be in the car soon. Hopefully some ARCA or truck races here in the next year, or hopefully this or next year. So yeah, and I do people helping me like Alpha Oakland. It's in uh, parents, uh, my man, and just a lot of people helping me behind this. I'm for that, and my family, mom, my brother, he's mine as well. Check him out, Jagger Jones. He's been racing some late model, really killing it. So it's cool to have doing that, and yeah, I'm excited to get a car soon.
Yeah, of course, same here. And so, any social media where, of course,
Yeah,
the fans can find
follow
y'all?
me on Instagram. You just look up Jagger Jones, come up. We're all so connected, and same with Twitter. I'm on Instagram a lot, so check me out there. That's where I think I post really the most of my stuff of what on a daily life, where you'll see me and all. Sure.
Pretty awesome. Well, thank you for coming on the show. I know taking time out of your, whether of course you're busy or not in this whole thing, just taking time out of your life to talk with me, share your story of your racing career. Always great to have on drivers like you, and hopefully, of course, when this thing resumes, you get, like you said, you get some drives and go crush it out there.
Yeah, well, that's the plan, and yeah, thanks for having me on. It's just kind of having a normal chat, bringing a normal life, and yeah, thanks for having me on.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm Jake Young. That's Jagger Jones, and from all of us here at Tip of Texas Sports Network, adios.